Let's deal with the valley. We'll scale the same. Don't you know you got wild blood running through your veins? Don't you know you got wild blood running through your wild blood?
And welcome to Genesis Speaks.
Hey y'all, my name is Ndiimanae and I'm the host of Genesis Speaks. Well, we're back for another episode, and on this episode, I'm alone, and I just want to unpack this on a woman-to-woman kind of like setup, because this one just needs us women, but obviously men can listen to understand and value the importance of women in their lives. But this topic today, it's quite close to my heart. It's something that has been hovering in my head on how women can cover their family spiritually, and how that could be a definition of what love looks like for me. And I will be speaking on, spiritual welfare first that we deal with, right? Remember, this is a mental health spirituality podcast where we speak about mental health and spirituality. So on this particular episode, I will delve into my experiences with, women covering their families, and how that is the definition of love, and how as a generation we could be that kind of women rather. Because I have been thinking so much because of what has been happening in my family, and it got to me that, you're now in that point in time where you have to cover your family through prayers. And when I mean prayers, I'm not necessarily talking about the Christian way of praying. But anyhow you pray, it is important to have that kind of connectivity spiritually. I take that since you're coming here on this podcast, you would have some sense of spirituality, and that we're touching base on that sense of spirituality with you guys, that it is a need, as a woman, to cover your family and spiritually in that sense, praying, anyhow you know best how to do that, because sometimes we want to do certain things that will invite certain bad energy as well. There's two energies: there's good energy and there's bad energy. Two energy, they all exist in one place, and we need to be cognizant of those two energies in our space, especially in our homes, since our homes are spiritual ground for us. That's where we sleep. That is where we make decisions. That is where we make our money. That is where our lives are. So we need to be cognizant of what we bring towards our spiritual home, our home. So this episode is going to delve on to that, and it's going to be quite interesting and very informative. And I hope you guys will enjoy everything, and let me know as well what you guys think. I hope you guys have been drinking your water, and I hope you guys have been managing your business, and I hope you guys have been hydrating, really drinking water and just minding your business, because a lot of is happening. But before we can, let's go to the first segment of the show, reflections. Let's go to reflect on this topic today. Let's go. You are still listening to Genesis Speaks. Catch you after the break. Charles, some of my people want to know how to start their podcast.
Have you heard about Anchor by Spotify?
Tell me more.
It's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place.
Please explain.
Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
And best of all,
Anchor is totally free.
Welcome back to Reflections. So, listen, y'all. Today, as I said, we are talking about spirituality and, how women play a role in covering the families and, fighting spiritual warfare and how to go about that. Well, I'm a spiritual person, really, and I grew up in a more Christian household wherein, I was taught prayer the Christian way, and the Bible and all that. Nothing wrong with that, honestly. Though my thinking around Christianity right now is no longer the kind of thing, but that is how I was raised. And I've come to believe that spirituality is just about what you have to believe something, and whatever that you believe in fully will manifest. So it's just about the belief system, and believing it's quite important, really, in spirituality. So this is not Christian based. As you know, I have a background of Christian, but that is what I know. Could mean what you know as well. It's still right. If you believe in ancestors, that's still right. If you believe in, Buddhism, that's still right. If you are Muslim, that's still right. Whatever that it is, it's still right. As long as it's a belief system that's spirituality, connecting with your inner self, kind of. That's that. Well, I think spirituality is kind of different from religion itself, because with now it's more of religion is more of the rules and regulations and so forth and so on. But now spirituality is the connection that you have with yourself, most importantly. Let me quickly just get what, the definition of spirituality is before we can go any further, um, than this. I just want you to have an idea. So the definition here that I'm looking at is the quality of being connected with the human spirit or soul, as opposed to material or physical things. So hence I said it's just connecting with yourself, really, your human spirit or your soul. And I want to reflect on that specifically. Like growing up, I was raised by my grandparents. My mother and my father were away, like from a very young age. My grandparents were hands on with me. So now I'm left with my grandmother, because like my mom passed on when I was 8, and she kind of raised me and taught me all the Christian ways of doing things, and I think that gave me a good foundation in what I am today, because I believed in something and there was a sense of discipline. But as I grew up, I realized the urgency or the need for me to be concerned with my human spirit and the soul, and connecting with my spirit. And I tend to call that connecting with God and having a connection with God. But in actual essence, it was not really connecting with God, but how I come to define that now, it was on connecting with my human spirit, really connecting with myself, connecting with my soul, and understanding, who I am. So I've always been, that kind of a person, from religious to spiritual. So I, easily can feel energies, because it's something that I would put out in the universe and say, this is what I want. God, I want to be able to have discernment to discern certain things and understand certain people, energies, and all that. So now, obviously, we're growing up, girl. Like, child, girl has been like growing up and all that, and now girl has family and all that, and stuff has been happening in my family, and that's when I realized that, you know what, you need to go back to the basics, because there was stuff happening in the family, and what needed to be done was cleansing of, we just moved into a new place. Obviously, when you move into a new place, you are moving to an energy that was staying there, and a certain energy was staying in that particular place, and there's a certain need of cleansing that is required of you in a new place that you move to. I believe that, because when I moved to this new place, dreams, I was having weird dreams, and weird things were happening, really. And that's when I realized the need of the cleansing. And when I had to do the cleansing, it was more of the thing of like, okay, how do we do the cleansing now? And I realized that I need to do it the way I think I know best, rather. Like what I know best, I should do it that way, because I might believe now in ancestors and, other, whatever, but I can't call the spirits of ancestors, because I don't know how to approach that part. no one has taught me in the sense of how to go about if you going to cleanse your household, calling out your senses and all that. I might find myself calling different other spirits that are not supposed to be called. Like I might be in a position where I'm calling out evil spirits to my space because I'm not quite aware. So I just went on with what I knew I could use, which was prayer and, the best way I could do it, and praying for the over the house and all that. And, after that, the dreams were like over and all that. And obviously, trials and tribulations will never end, honestly, because these are the taints that we have to face. And that brings us closer to our human experience in ourselves, really, when we go through trials. Hence, I think in one of the episodes, I mentioned the fact that it's important to bask in the moment when you are happy and when you are feeling good, because not those moments are not going to last forever. So, yeah, man, we were talking about new beginnings in some of the episodes. Yeah, new beginning, yeah, it's good, but ciao. There's also a trap with new beginnings, as we mentioned in that episode, that with new beginnings, there's more responsibility that comes. What led you to that space, you need to be in a position to cultivate where you are through how you got in. So if it's prayer that got you in, prayer must maintain your presence in that place, because things are not going to always be good. And, there's going to be attack from good, bad, whatever. I mean, bad, especially, rather, bad spirits and all that's coming your way. And obviously, when you're moving good, not everyone is happy for you and you're moving and everything. So you need to be aware of that. That's why I always seek for discernment in my space and in the people that I interact with, because that's when you kind of know who to tell and who to tell, what not to tell who. And yeah, man, so things have been happening, and that took me back to the fact that I have my grandmother who taught me, prayer and all that. And she's one person that prays for me. Even when I'm back home, I would be in my room, I would hear her praying, and she'd be mentioning, I'm praying for my grandchild, and that is for me a definition of what love is, really. Because hmm, someone who prays for you in your absence, like I'm quite well aware that my grandmother prays for me in my absence, and that is the prayers that, sort of protect us from a lot of things that we don't know. Sometimes we go through things, and when we are going through things in our lives, we forget the power of prayer, and we forget the power of praying mothers, praying grandmothers, praying parents, praying over our lives when we are not there. For me, as I said, that is the definition of what unconditional love is. Someone who wishes you well. Praying, as I said, is um a form of connection with the soul and the human spirit, and so forth and so on. So it could be whatever kind of prayer it is, but someone who wishes you well, even in your absence, that is love for me. Someone who wishes you, you know, good and well, and their spirit is pure for you. That for me is a definition of what love looks like. And I think that made me realize in the situations that I was in that, you have someone who has been praying over your life. There could be many other things that could have happened to you, but this person praying over your life had made the situations to not be as intense as they were supposed to be. There were many moments in my life when I was, on my journey, as I said in, beginning of the year, talking about the last few months of last year, of getting kidnapped, and all those weird things being, it was lost. So but the last few months of 2022 were very hectic, and to be honest, I believe that with my grandmother's prayers, they sort of protected me from many other things that I could have went through, but they were not too severe in the sense. So um that made me realize how now it is my responsibility to pray for my family, because now I have a family, and this is now my responsibility to now put my family first in prayer, and just to be connected, go back to the basics, and where I understand that power in prayer, and that is just power in believing, honestly. Power in prayer is power in believing, really. Let me grab, sorry, I have like some flu situation, hey. So can you have the girls like pray for me? So let me quickly check what is prayer, like the definition of what prayer is. Um So, prayer is an invocation or an act that seeks to activate a rapport with an object of worship through deliberate communication. So, hence it said, prayer is not necessarily the Christian way of doing things, but could be speaking to your ancestors when you light your sage, or whatever you do to, communicate and have an invocation, and, an act that seeks an active rapport. Okay. So that is.
And you're still listening to Genesis Speaks.
So yeah, no, that's what prayer is, right? And that's my understanding of prayer as an act to communicate what you are looking for. Could be praising, could be worshiping, and could just be an act of thanksgiving, to God or the higher power for whatever thing. Could be life, really. We always follow that with thanksgiving. So that is an act of a prayer. And that's how I understood the importance of, praying mothers and praying grandmothers, really. And now that we are also in that space as the women of now, have to pray for families and for our kids. Some of my peers, I have kids now, and I would assume that you guys are praying for your kids. I would assume that you guys are praying for your kids, because just like our parents paid for us, not every one of us, obviously, but I'm saying for those that have those mothers that were praying and all that, you should be in a space where you are putting your kids in prayer. And that is when I realized the importance, because we are dealing with a lot of spiritual warfare, as I just mentioned with my story, that there was a lot of other things that we were dealing with, and I realized how important for me to take the baton now, as I still have my grandmother praying for me, but at some point she's going to be gone, and I'll not even some point, like now I have the responsibility to pray for my own family, my own kids, and so forth and so on. So it is quite important. I'm going to be reading on I'm just going to look for this quickly with y'all. Combating spiritual warfare in your home. So fighting spiritual warfare, but this article is written mostly in the Christian context. But I will try to put it in a more general context, but also Christian context. That's where I drew most understanding, because that's where I grew up in Christian household. So it says this article says that we were so focused on what we could see, we failed to account for the unseen. And that's where I can't really, because where I was in the space is accounting for what we could not see. Now we are in this new beginning, new home, but I had realized the fact that this home had belonged to someone else with different energy, and a lot has transpired in this kind of space, and we need to cleanse this place and speak, sort of, is an act of a prayer, right? Speak towards intention of what this place should feel like for us, specifically now that we are in this home. So now this article says that, so we set our home smack in the middle of Wind Alley, with nothing to protect us from its bowling ball force. The sound of 40, 50, even 60 mph gusts clashing against the steel siding of our home reminds me of the crash of pins after the long strike I caught it the last time we went bowling. I watched the menace storm clouds blow in, and I've listened to the thunderous rain pelt against the north face of our home, reeled at the discovery of shredded corn stalks torn from the soil by invisible torrent. Our tender apple trees hum to be great force of an invisible gust. My children run to me for comfort. I tell them we are safe in our real world century, still world century. Together, we watch the effects of the storm and pray it passes quickly. So now, here the writer is talking about there was a storm wherever they are, right? And they were seeing all those things going on and happening, and um, she has to comfort her kids in that moment because at this point in time we are in spaces where we have to be strong for our kids. Our parents were strong for us, but now it's time for us to be strong for our kids and our families. And as I feel like as women, we are more in that era where we have to be quite even more stronger because as a woman you hold your family. Like, I'm a traditional girl. You can tell with my thinking. I'm not really like a modern kind of girl thinking. Yes, there are modern ways now. We will also like include, how about like if it's a homosexual relationship and all those kind of things, we deal up with that differently. But obviously in a traditional household, um you would the covering of the family is through the mother who is praying for the family, right? Goes praying for the kids and the husband and if and so forth and so forth. So it says that although I cannot see the wind, there is no denying its effect on our valley. So wind is like invisible really, but the effects of wind shows within the so we don't fight for victory in spiritual, but we fight victoriously. That is the word. Like we don't fight victory in spiritual warfare, we fight victoriously. And that is what is happening because like wind is invisible, and also the energies that I'm talking about, like when you're moving into a place and all those things, those are things that are invisible. But when you are quite invested in the spirit and understanding, matters of spirit, like in the spiritual realm, that's where dreams and energy and all that, because your home, honey, is an important space, and you need to all the time cleanse it and protect your space, because that's where you build, that is where you grow as an individual, that's where your kids grow as well. So it's important for you to cultivate your space in spiritual, like clean it. Spirituality also needs it's about cleaning your environment and ensuring that you are always safe. Um, so I'm trying to find where I can read. I'm trying to find where I can read. So I'm going to read a Bible verse, right? So it's Second Timothy 2, verse 24 to 26. It says, the Lord's slave must not quarrel, but be gentle to everyone, be and able to teach and patient, instructing his opponents with his gentleness. Perhaps God will grant them repentance and leading them to knowledge of the truth. Then they may come to their senses and escape the devil's trap, having been captured by him to do his will. So your spouse is not your enemy, right? You could be having an issue with your spouse. Your wayward child is not your enemy. And your circumstances right now are not your enemy. Like things could be going downhill. So that is the first basis of understanding that you need to come up with as, in your household, that your spouse is not the enemy. There is a bigger enemy that you need to fight against. And you need to prepare that spiritually. I'm not sure how you guys do it. I would love to hear how you go about, doing that. But I'm reflecting on how I go about, fighting my enemy. But now, for me, fighting the enemy is, praying really, because for me, prayer cleanses me, prayer connects me with my inner self. And I get to understand the fact that everything else that is happening around me, the circumstances, is not the enemy. But, the bad spirits are your enemies, and they will use everyone and everything they can to distract and discourage and destroy you, even the people that you most like, uh, or especially the people you love the most. So the bad energy, evil spirits don't want us to live in unity, and they always adores discord, and especially in a family setup. That's where in most family setups we're just finding ourselves in discord, like people fighting and so forth and so on. And in family setup, it's the way we see love in that sense, because it's very hard to connect with people, different people, and that have different beliefs, really.
And you're still listening to Genesis Speaks.
So it is important for us to recognize that there has to be unity for us to build. And where there's no unity, you can't build. And there is supposed to be someone, obviously, in a family setup. There's everyone's. I'm not sure. I've come to realize that in a family setup we have different roles that we play, and in the roles that we play, it is quite important for every one of us to effectively play their role and make sure that they're doing their part. And in most cases, the women mostly are covering their families through different, that is their role of covering their families. And in a more spiritual way, that's where they really protect your territory. And the men as well will be doing what they need to be doing, but that is just also in a very patriarchal way. Just just I'm just noting it down for those who'll be like, oh child, that is very patriarchal. Yeah, that is a very patriarchal way, and this is how I view things, and this is unfortunately how I see the world for myself. And but understanding the fact that other people see it differently, and when you see it differently, whatever that works for you, that's why I'm saying whatever that works specifically for you and your family, just do that, really, because it's not about this is the right way. There isn't really a right way in life. Like, it's just any other thing. There isn't a really specific right way to do anything, but whatever that works for you, you do it. And I'm gonna give you a very silly example, like hair. When I've seen many hair videos, like you can use this and all that. Like, hair techniques that don't work for everyone, because we have different hair textures and so forth and so on. So your hair routine could work for you, but might not work for me. So it is important for me to acknowledge the routine that works for me, specifically for my hair. So that goes to, sorry for that. That goes to also understanding spiritually what works for you and your family. So you go with what works for you. And yeah, it's quite important for us to be in that space where we understand what works for us. We need to examine our families. Don't go around taking things from different places and just trying them out. You need to use the same formula that works for you. There's no need for you to change a formula if it's already working. Like, if it's already not broken, why are you fixing it? There is no reason for you to fix something that is not broken. So it is quite important for you as an individual to go out there and look for what specifically works for your family or for yourself specifically. And that is quite important to be able to be a unit in fighting whatever spiritual warfare that you might be facing in your family and in just your life in general. Sometimes you might not have the family as of yet, and you are hoping to have one. You can start now, preparing and praying for that family. And it doesn't mean that when you start getting what you prayed for, then the prayer stops. For most of us, we pray for something and then we get it, and then umuntu stops praying. It's like, then. But no, when you prayed for something, it got you to that prayer, got you to that space, or pasha got you to that place, or whatever that you do got you to that place. So it means maintaining yourself maintaining that blessing, it's also through prayer. You shouldn't forget prayer when things are too good. And for me, it's a thing of like, I feel very uncomfortable when I'm getting like when I'm getting very comfortable. I don't know if that makes sense. If I'm getting, if if I'm too comfortable, I get worried rather about a lot of things. I don't want to be in a space where I'm too comfortable. And yeah, that is just me. So yeah, no, it's important to understand that whole thing. And I hope this was quite informative to you guys. And I think understanding that we have to take our responsibility, could be you listening as a woman, could be you listening as a man, could be you listening as whomever. You still have a responsibility, right? To protect your family, protect yourself as well. And it's not only your family, but you need to protect yourself. Some of you guys don't have anyone that prays for you or has good intentions for you, whatever the thing is. But now the responsibility lies within you to actually pray for yourself. And I love the song that I've been listening to. It says, encourage yourself, speak over yourself, speak over yourselves. Like sometimes you just have to, push yourself to those limits. And that's for me how I've been fighting depression. I speak over myself through that you can't afford to be in the space and time. You can't afford to be depressed in the space and time. You have to speak over depression. You have to speak over lack. You have to speak over distraction. You have to speak over whatever that is literally coming against. Or oh, there's flu and it's just annoying. It's not really flu, some sinus situation. It's so annoying. But anyways, you need to speak over it. I'm speaking over the sinus situation, honey. You know, God, you can't, ooh, you can't disturb me now. You can't disturb me now. I'm out here podcasting and you'll be disturbing me now. Mm. So you need to speak over yourself sometimes, because the biggest enemy that you have is yourself. At most of the time, you are your biggest enemy, and you need to speak over that.
And you're still listening to Genesis Speaks.
And welcome back to the last segment of the show, gratitude. Well, I think it was a quite mouthful episode, and I think you guys have learned a lot out of the episode. I hope. And I'm grateful for the light, I don't say this much, but being able to see, and discern, that is light. And I'm grateful for the light that is upon my life, being able to discern and being able to see, having that gift that God gave me. And I'm grateful for that gift, God. And yeah, I'm grateful for protection and provision, most importantly provision. It's something that I've been speaking over, as I said in the last segment, that you need to speak over yourself. So I speak over a lot of on provision and not lack. And I don't live in lack. I live in, provision. And that is manifested in many ways or the other in my life. And that is what I'm grateful for. So y'all, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. The next one will be a pre dun, to the last one, because episode 20 is the last episode. So episode 19 is like pre what to the finale. But yeah, we going road to the end of season 8. What a season! And yeah, man, I'm just grateful for you guys for being on the journey. As like the season started, I have a lot to upload. That's what Dindo says. I have a lot to upload, and I believe a lot has been uploaded throughout this season. And I'm sure you also listening have been uploading. See you next time. Bye.